AITA for refusing to babysit, after which my sister dumped her kids and called the cops. My name is Carla, I am 32 years old, and I work as a software engineer for a large tech company. I work from home in a spare room I converted into an office. It sounds comfortable, but to my family, working from home means I am always available. My parents are retired and I have an older sister, Jessica, who is 37, divorced for 2 years, and a mother of 3, Alex, 9, Emily, 7, and Dylan, 6. Ever since her separation, Jessica became obsessed with rebuilding her life. According to her, she needed to find a good guy, get married again, and start over. The problem is that dating someone when you have 3 little kids is not easy. So she found the simplest solution: leaving them with me. At first it was just for a little while, a few hours when she had a date, an afternoon when something came up, a Saturday because she needed to breathe. But in less than a year, it was no longer just a little while. It was practically a daily occurrence. I was not the helpful aunt. I was the one raising them. Alex, the oldest, is a quiet boy. He is one of those kids who has already learned how to read the room. He helped with the other 2 without anyone asking him to. Sometimes I feel like he was raising himself too. And to be honest, without him I would have fallen apart by now. Because taking care of 3 kids while trying to keep up with a full-time job is not just tiring. It is an emotional and physical drain that changes your mood, your body, and even the way you think. Jessica lived in a rented apartment, and the kids' dad, James, paid her child support. She also worked part-time at a marketing agency, maybe 20 hours a week, but even so, it was never enough for her. There was always something: school supplies, new clothes for a growth spurt, a field trip fee, medicine, an unexpected bill. I earn a good salary because I am at a senior level in my field, and on top of taking care of them, I often paid for their clothes, shoes, after-school activities, and sports fees. My parents, although retired, also gave Jessica money to support her. If I tell it like this, it sounds as if we all chipped in, but the reality was different. Everyone made themselves comfortable while I carried the heavy load. A typical day for me went like this. I woke up at 6 in the morning to get a head start on work before the kids started moving. Around 7, Jessica would arrive. Sometimes she did not even knock properly. She would just text that she was here. And as soon as I opened the door, the kids would walk in with their backpacks and sleepy faces, and she would already be heading back to the elevator. "Watch them for me. I will be back later," she would say, as if she were dropping off a bag of groceries. I made them breakfast. I checked that their hair was combed, that they had their lunchboxes, that they had their homework, and that they did not forget their jackets. I drove them to school and rushed back to log on for meetings, answer emails, and write code. In the afternoon it was school pickup, then homework. If one had to read a chapter, I was there. If another got stuck on multiplication tables, I was there. If the youngest cried because he could not find his notebook, I was there. Then it was dinner for 4, bath time, breaking up fights, and turning off the lights. And when they finally fell asleep, my real workday began. I stayed up until midnight, sometimes later, trying to catch up on what I could not do during the day. I started missing deadlines, nothing major, but enough for my manager to ask if everything was okay. And the worst part was the feeling that Jessica did not even see the problem. To her this was normal. She never asked if I was available. She never gave me notice, she just assumed. Then one Wednesday she called me at noon. "Carla, you have to come to Mom and Dad's for dinner on Saturday. I have something important to tell everyone. I need the whole family. Just tell me now. No, it has to be in person. You will really want to be there for this." I had no idea what it was, but a part of me wanted to believe it was finally good news. I imagined the best. A serious boyfriend, someone who would actually be a partner, someone who would bring some order to her life. On Saturday, I arrived at my parents' house around 5, before the traffic got bad. They live in a quiet suburb, in one of those houses that feels like it has been on the same street forever. When I parked, I saw Jessica's minivan and another car I did not recognize. I went inside, and there she was in the living room with the kids, and next to her a man I had never seen before. He looked to be her age, maybe a little older. Average height, nervous hands, a half smile, like someone trying hard to make a good impression. "Carla," Jessica said, getting up quickly to hug me. "I am so glad you came. Look, this is Mark." Mark stood up and shook my hand. "Nice to meet you. Jessica has told me so much about you." "Nice to meet you," I said, left with that uncomfortable feeling that something was being arranged without my consent. My parents came out of the kitchen. My mom was carrying a platter. My dad was right behind her with a look of anticipated happiness, as if he already knew what was coming. We sat down for dinner. The kids were unusually quiet. Alex was not running around. Emily was not asking for things. Dylan was not fighting over a cup. They were incredibly well behaved. I should have known right then that something big was about to happen. Halfway through dinner, I could not take the suspense anymore. So Jessica, what is the important news? She shifted in her seat, cleared her throat and took Mark's hand. She was smiling as if she were posing for a photograph. Well, we have some news. She took a long pause, the kind designed to build suspense. I am pregnant, and Mark and I are getting married soon. There were a few seconds of stunned silence. Then my parents practically shouted with excitement. My mom got up to hug her. My dad congratulated her, his eyes shining. Mark smiled, accepting congratulations like an actor playing a part. I just sat there with my fork in the air. It was not that the pregnancy was a bad thing. The problem was that I knew what was already happening with the 3 kids she had. Jessica could barely handle them. She survived on help. She worked very little. Her life was a chaotic mess. How was a 4th baby supposed to fix any of that? Congratulations, I finally said, because I was not going to make a scene. Wow, that is big news. Thank you, Jessica replied. And then she made a face that said, now comes the real reason we are here. But there is more. She turned to me with a light, casual smile, and that smile set off every alarm bell in my head. I am going to need you to keep the kids for a few months while the pregnancy progresses, and then while I recover from the birth. I felt my throat tighten. What? Just a few months, she said, as if she were asking me to water a plant. You know, so I can focus on being healthy, not getting stressed out, and when the baby is born, well, I will need time to settle in with the newborn. Are you telling me that you want me to take full responsibility for your 3 children for months on end? Jessica's face scrunched up, as if my tone had offended her. Well, yes, I mean, you can do it. You work from home and you have always been with them. It would just be more formal now. More formal, I repeated. I felt a laugh bubbling up, but it was a laugh of pure anger. Jessica, I already take care of them almost every single day. I feed them, take them to school, help with their homework, buy them things. I am already exhausted. You are being so dramatic, she snapped. It is your family. Dramatic? I am raising your children. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, a performance she had clearly rehearsed. I cannot believe you are so selfish. Honestly, Carla, this is just sad. I turned to my parents, hoping that for once, someone would say something reasonable, that someone would set a boundary for her. But my mom looked at me with a serious expression, as if I were the one at fault. Carla, you do not have children. You do not know how hard it is. I froze. I do not know how hard it is? I have spent the last year living with your grandchildren, more than Jessica has. That is not the same thing, my dad said quickly. Your sister needs support right now. She is building a home and what about my job? My life? My voice cracked. Who supports me? My mom sighed with feigned patience. If your sister wants to have another baby, it is not our place to judge her. You support your family. That is just how it is. I put my fork down. I stood up. Then let her do it without my help. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Jessica started crying loudly, and my parents launched into their usual speech. That family comes first, that it is an obligation, that how could I be so heartless? I walked out and got into my car with trembling hands. I drove back to my apartment with a burning rage in my chest. Before I even got home, my phone was blowing up with messages. Jessica, you are a terrible sister. I am so ashamed of you. My mom, you should be ashamed of yourself. It is your duty to help. My dad, your sister needs support, not criticism. You are being unfair. I did not answer. I turned off my phone and went to bed early for the first time in months. The following week was paradise. Jessica did not show up. She did not drop the kids off once. My parents did not call. There were no angry voicemails, no complaints. It was just me, my work, and the silence. I made more progress than I had in a long time. I submitted everything on schedule. I felt competent again, and in a meeting my manager even told me he was happy with my performance, that the change was noticeable, and that a performance bonus was likely on its way. For a few days I thought my family finally understood. They did not understand. The following Saturday I was asleep, enjoying something that barely existed in my life anymore. Waking up without an alarm. Suddenly there were loud knocks on my door. I glanced at the clock. 7 in the morning. I threw a sweatshirt over my pajamas. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There were Alex, Emily, and Dylan with suitcases. I opened it immediately. "What are you guys doing here?" All three had that scared look on their faces that stays etched in your memory. Alex was holding Emily's hand. Dylan was clutching a stuffed animal to his chest. Alex spoke very softly. "Mom brought us. She put the suitcases here and told us to wait a little bit, and then when she was gone we should knock." I felt the blood rush to my head. She had left them here alone. "Not for long," Alex said quickly, protecting her as always. But we did not know what to do. I brought them inside, poured them some juice, and gave them cereal so they could eat something, then told them to sit on the couch. I took a second to breathe, and then I dialed Jessica's number. It rang and rang. I was about to hang up when she answered. "What, Jessica? You left your kids outside my door with suitcases with no adult." "Oh please, Carla. It was for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is more than enough time for something terrible to happen." Her tone made it sound like I was the one overreacting. "Anyway, you were going to take care of them. You always end up giving in. Stop making such a scene. You need to come get them." "I cannot right now. Mark and I have plans." And she hung up on me. I stared at my phone in disbelief. I called my parents and my mom answered. "Mom, Jessica left the kids here and drove off. She left them alone outside my apartment." There was a silence as if she already knew. "Carla, your sister is trying to build a life with Mark, and besides she is pregnant. She needs peace and quiet." "And what about her kids? Are they not part of her life?" My mom's tone grew harsh. "Stop being so selfish. Just help out. It is your family." I hung up with a lump in my throat. 20 minutes later, there was another knock on the door. I opened it and saw 2 police officers standing in the hallway. "Good morning, ma'am. We received a report. We were told that there are 3 minors here, and that you are planning to leave them unattended." I felt my legs go weak. "What? That is not true. I was not going to leave them. The person who called said that you refused to care for them, and were going to put them out on the street." I turned to look at Alex, who was standing behind me, pale. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My sister left them here this morning. Without warning. She just drove off and hung up on me." One of the officers crouched down a bit to talk to Alex. "Is what your aunt is saying true?" Alex nodded. "Mom left us here with our things. She told us to wait and then knock." I took a breath. "And besides, I have video. 2 months ago, I had installed a doorbell camera. There had been some break-ins in the complex, and I wanted to be cautious. I never told my family. I opened the app on my phone, found the recording, and showed it to the officers. The footage was crystal clear. Jessica arriving with the kids, dragging suitcases, telling them something, looking around nervously, and then getting in her car and driving away while all 3 stood frozen at the entrance. One of the officers looked at me seriously. "This is a delicate situation. It is clear from this video that she left them unsupervised." "I want to file a report," I said, my voice firm even though I was crumbling inside. "And I want the authorities to step in to protect the children. This cannot continue." The officers took down all the information. They asked me how long the kids stayed with me, how often, who handled school, food, and doctors. The kids answered as well. Before leaving, one of them explained in a careful tone, "We are going to have to escalate this. For safety reasons, it is best that the minors remain with you for now while the case is reviewed." That same afternoon, my hands were shaking from pure anger, but I also felt something new. For the first time, I was not alone, carrying this burden in silence. Throughout the week, there were calls, appointments, and a lot of running around. They asked for details about the kids' school, their schedules, and our living arrangement. I answered everything. A few days later, a social worker from the Department of Family Services arrived. She introduced herself as Veronica and told me she was there to assess the situation. She did not have a threatening attitude. She came with a folder and a calm demeanor, asking only what was necessary. She interviewed me, and then she spoke with the children separately. She asked where they normally lived, who took them to school, who cooked for them, what happened when they got sick, and how often they stayed with me. From what I understand, she said while taking notes, they spend the majority of their time under your care. I nodded. Yes. And it has not been for just a week. It has been going on for over a year. Do you also cover their expenses? Yes. Clothes, activities, school supplies. I have paid for a lot of things. I do it because it is not their fault, but I cannot keep this up. Veronica looked at me for a moment, as if weighing the gravity of what she was hearing. We are going to open a formal case. The primary priority here is the well-being of the children. That same night, Jessica called me and then showed up at my building, absolutely furious. She kept buzzing the intercom and knocking on my door, insistent, as if she wanted the entire complex to know what was happening. I opened the door, my heart racing. You involved family services? Are you out of your mind? I did not involve anyone, Jessica. You left your kids outside my door, and then called the police to lie about me. They might take my kids away because of you. Not because of you. Because of your decisions. Jessica's face turned red, as if she could not believe someone was finally holding her accountable. I am taking them with me right now. No, I told her, my voice much steadier than I felt. I was instructed that for the time being, and for their safety, they are to stay here while everything is reviewed. If you want to do things properly, go through the official channels. You cannot stop me from seeing them. I am not stopping you from seeing them, but you are not going to grab them like luggage and take them away just to dump them wherever is convenient for you. The kids were in the living room, silent, their eyes wide. That silence broke my heart. Jessica left, screaming that I had humiliated her. Half an hour later, my parents called, not to ask about the kids but to scold me. Carla, you have ruined everything, my mom yelled. How could you involve the authorities? What a disgrace. Your nieces and nephews could end up in foster care. I squeezed the phone. Mom, James, the kid's dad, called me today. They went quiet. He was contacted by the agency because of what happened, and he wants full custody. He is tired of paying child support only to find out that his kids live with me more than they do with Jessica. My dad took a deep breath on the other end of the line. What do you mean, custody? Yes, he is filing the paperwork. And he said something very clearly. He is not going to keep sending that money if Jessica is not the one taking care of the kids. They said nothing for a few seconds, and then my mom hung up. When I put my phone down, I turned to look at the three of them on the couch. They were watching TV. For the first time in a long time, they did not look tense. They looked calm, as if someone were finally putting things in order. The kids stayed with me that month while the interviews, visits, and paperwork progressed. And as strange as it sounds, it was the most stable period they had experienced in a long time. With no sudden changes, without Jessica appearing and disappearing, we were able to build a normal routine. I worked in the morning while they were at school. I picked them up when they got out, which was around 2:30 or 3 depending on the afternoon traffic. Then it was homework, dinner, bath, and bed, and afterward I would finish whatever work I had left. Alex, Emily, and Dylan started to relax. They no longer asked constantly what time their mom was coming, or where they were sleeping tomorrow. They knew what day it was, they knew who was picking them up, they knew they were going to eat. James called me often. Carla, you do not know how sorry I am, he told me one night. I had no idea Jessica was leaving them with you so much. I thought she was taking care of them. She knows how to arrange things to make it look like everything is fine, I told him. But the kids have been living with that uncertainty as if it were normal. James was quiet for a moment and then spoke more seriously. I have been paying $3,000 a month in child support. It is a high amount because I do well. And I paid it with the understanding that my kids would be fully covered. And now I find out that this money was not being used the way it should have been. I do not want to fight just to fight. I want my kids with me. I want them to be stable. The hearing in family court arrived a few weeks later. I took the day off from work. I could not be thinking about code while all of this was being decided. The courthouse was bustling with people. Jessica arrived with Mark. James arrived with his lawyer. My parents were there with grieving faces, as if I had betrayed the entire family. Veronica and other people from the agency were also there, along with staff from the children's school. When it was her turn, Jessica was the first to speak. She cried. She talked about a mother's love. She said that she had always been there for her children. She said she just needed a little help because she was going through a difficult time. Mark hugged her and nodded with a look of deep concern. Then, her lawyer tried to paint me as the meddling aunt who had blown the situation out of proportion to try and keep the kids for herself. When it was James's turn, he did not yell or cry. He just spoke clearly. I have complied with my child support payments and with my visitation schedule. I believe that my children were with their mother, and that she was taking care of them. Now I find out that they spend most of their time with my former sister-in-law. It is not fair to my children. And it is not fair to Carla either. Then it was my turn. The judge asked me simple, direct questions. How many days a week have the minors been in your care over the last year? 5 or 6 days, sometimes more. Sometimes they would stay the night and Jessica would not even let me know. Who is responsible for their schooling? I am. I take them to school. I pick them up most of the time. I sign permission slips. I answer calls from the school nurse. I go to parent-teacher conferences. At one point, the school asked me to be listed as the primary emergency contact because my sister would not answer her phone. Did you formally agree to this arrangement? No, it just kept escalating. Every time I tried to say no, Jessica would get offended, or my parents would call me to tell me I was being cruel. And then the judge asked about that Saturday. Explain what happened on the day the police were called. I swallowed hard. That day, my sister left all 3 of them outside my apartment building with their suitcases. She told them to wait and then to knock. She left, and then she called the police to accuse me of abandoning them. The video from my doorbell camera was presented as evidence. The courtroom watched it in silence. The judge asked to see it a second time. Jessica's text messages were also presented. Messages where she demanded that I keep the kids for months because, according to her, she needed to focus on her pregnancy and her new relationship. When staff from the school were called to testify, a teacher said something that hurt me and, at the same time, confirmed everything. In the school's records, Carla is listed as the primary contact. I have seen her at every conference. I have seen the children's mother very rarely. Another teacher said something similar about Emily, and another about Dylan. My parents tried to defend Jessica. They said she was a good mother who was just going through a hard time, but when asked how many days a week the children actually lived with their mother, they could not give a clear answer. After the hearing, they told us the judge would issue a ruling. The process was not immediate, but the video and the text messages carried too much weight. A week later we returned. That day when the judge spoke, Jessica squeezed Mark's hand tightly. My parents were tense. Based on the evidence presented, the judge said, full physical custody of the 3 minors is hereby granted to their father, Mr. James. Jessica let out a choked cry, like she had been physically struck. My parents went rigid. James closed his eyes for a second, as if he were holding on to something that had finally stopped weighing him down. The judge continued in a firm tone. An unstable pattern of care by the mother has been observed, with a constant delegation of parental responsibilities. The documented incident on the morning in question reflects a serious lack of judgment regarding the safety of the minors. It was also determined that James would assume direct financial responsibility, and that the terms of child support would be adjusted according to the new custody arrangement. When we walked out, my mom did not even look at me. Jessica left with Mark without saying a single word. The kids moved in with James a few weeks later. He had already set up their bedrooms with new beds and desks. He enrolled them in a school near his house. The transition against all odds was smooth. The kids already had a weekend routine with James. They knew him well, and most importantly, things with him were stable. Dinner was at a set time. Bedtime was at a set time. They knew who was in charge. They visited me some weekends. Once Alex told me while we were setting the table for dinner, "Auntie, I am not afraid of the dark anymore." "Why is that?" Because now I always know where I am going to sleep. Emily jumped into the conversation. And my dad actually makes dinner and helps us with our homework. Dylan just nodded with his serious little face, hugging the same stuffed animal. That was all I needed to know, that even if my family hated me for it, I had done the right thing. Jessica married Mark in a small ceremony. She did not invite me, which made no difference to me. Months later she had her baby, and my parents continued to give me the silent treatment. To them, I had destroyed Jessica's life, as if it were easier to blame me than to accept what she had done. I, on the other hand, was finally breathing again. 6 months after all of that, my life felt completely different. For the first time since Jessica's divorce, I was living for myself. I could work regular hours. I could sleep in on a Saturday. I could make plans without expecting a last-minute text telling me to watch them for a bit. My career genuinely improved. Without the constant interruptions and the endless nights of catching up, I was able to focus. That performance bonus came through, and then came something bigger. They gave me more responsibility and promoted me to a team lead position with a better salary and more challenging projects, the kind that actually excite you. I also started dating again without feeling a constant cloud of guilt and exhaustion. At a tech conference, I met Ryan, a software engineer whom I connected with instantly. One day at a coffee shop, I told him the whole story, without sugarcoating any of it. He looked at me with a mix of surprise and respect. So you were basically raising 3 kids who were not yours while working a full-time engineering job? Yes, I told him. And the worst part is that I had started to see it as normal. Ryan shook his head. That was not normal, that was exploitation. And you still did it for the kids. The kids were thriving with James. That was noticeable too. Alex, who was about to turn 10, started getting top grades in math. Emily joined the school choir. Dylan got excited about playing t-ball and stopped being so anxious all the time. When they came over to my place, it was no longer that heavy routine of an exhausted caregiver. Now I could actually enjoy them. We would go to the movies, to a museum, for a walk in the park, or we would stay home playing board games and ordering pizza. Simple aunt things, not makeshift mom things. One afternoon, Alex stared at me while I was pouring him a glass of water. Auntie, you are happier now, right? He caught me off guard. Why do you say that? Because you do not look tired all the time anymore. I got a lump in my throat. Yes, Alex. I am happier. Emily raised her hand as if she were in class. And we are too. With my dad, we are not always rushing. We just know. That phrase, we just know, hit me hard because that was what they had been missing before. Knowing, having certainty, not living life by guessing what would happen next. I received news about Jessica through relatives. Her marriage was getting complicated. Taking care of a baby without being able to offload the other 3 was harder than she had ever imagined. Now she actually needed a full-time job. A cousin, Laura, told me that Jessica was going around asking for money for formula and diapers, but most people no longer wanted to get involved. They no longer wanted to help, if helping meant enabling the same destructive pattern. My parents remained in their angry silence, and to be honest, that silence brought me peace. I was tired of living with the guilt they imposed for setting basic boundaries. I was tired of them only talking to me about family when they needed something from me. Other relatives, however, started to admit what they had known all along. My cousin Marcus called me months later. Carla, I owe you an apology. We all knew Jessica was taking advantage, but nobody wanted to get involved. What you did took real courage. I just wanted the kids to be okay, I told him. And you did it. They are better. And so are you. A year after the court's decision, I bought a house. Not huge, but exactly what I had always wanted. 3 bedrooms, a small backyard, and a perfect room for a home office. I managed it because my money and my energy were finally my own. I invited James and the kids over for a housewarming barbecue. Dylan ran around the yard as if he could not believe there was so much space. Aunt Carla, it is really pretty here. Thanks, buddy, I told him. And whenever you come over, you will always have your own space here. James approached me while the kids were exploring inside. Carla, I do not know how to thank you. I know you lost your relationship with your parents and your sister over this. I took a slow breath. Those relationships were already broken. The only difference is that I used to put up with it, and now I do not. James nodded. My kids are doing great, and that started with you. You gave them stability when no one else would. I watched them from the kitchen window. Alex was helping Emily open a bag of chips without tearing it. Dylan was showing off his designated room as if it were a five-star hotel. And right then, I understood something I should have understood from the beginning. Being a good sister, a good daughter, or a good aunt does not mean saying yes to everything. It does not mean letting yourself be used just to avoid conflict. Sometimes being a good person means saying no when you are being asked to do something deeply unfair. Jessica thought I would always be available because I had never set a firm boundary. She kept raising the stakes. First a few hours, then days, then weeks, and finally she wanted me to take over for months as if my time had no value. But it reached a point where it was no longer about me. It was about 3 kids who were growing up among suitcases, constant changes, and broken promises. They deserved stability. They deserved an adult who would truly take care of them. And I deserved a life where my job and my peace were not a favor that my family permitted me to have. Yes, I lost people along the way, and I know there are some who will never forgive me. But when I think of Alex saying he is no longer afraid of the dark because he always knows where he is going to sleep, I have no doubts. Sometimes protecting children involves making difficult decisions that others refuse to make because it is more comfortable to keep pretending that everything is fine. I stopped pretending, and from that day forward, I was finally free to build a life that was not made of guilt, manipulation, and exhaustion. A life where saying no was not being cruel but was, in fact, the right thing to do. Comment. What resonates with me so deeply in stories like this is the complex nature of family and responsibility. I truly believe setting boundaries is not an act of rejection, but an act of profound self-respect. It also shows us that true kindness isn't always about saying yes to please others. Often, it is about having the courage to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and that includes protecting yourself. Your first responsibility is to your own peace and well-being. From that stable foundation, you can then offer the world and the people you love the best version of yourself. The journey to healing often starts with one difficult but necessary decision. I hope this story gives you the strength to honor your own needs if you feel unheard. Remember that choosing your peace isn't selfish. It is the foundation for a life of authentic kindness. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.